Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gruber, I wanted to talk to you a little bit in my time here today about your understanding of the state and federal exchange premium assistances. We've talked about that today, and you referenced it several times. But let me first just make sure I understood what you told Ms. Lummis a second ago about all your comments. I know you've been here today. You've been very humble. You've been eating crow. You don't like the way you said things, and you've been walking those back. But she asked you if all those statements were a lie, and you just said they were not lies. Is that what you said?
They were glib and thoughtless and really inexcusable.
But in terms of content, you weren't lying. You don't like the way you said it, but what you said, you had some basis for.
The comments that I made were just my conjecturing outside my area of expertise.
Well, Mr. Gowdy talked about that, and you did that an awful lot. I don't think you were necessarily out of your area of expertise. In fact, I think you nailed most of what you said. Just politically, maybe you weren't being a good politician. You weren't good in the way you said them. But I just, for one, applaud you for coming forth with those statements and telling people that, you know, this was a difficult law to pass, wasn't it, when you were up here advising people, trying to get the health care law passed. It was a difficult sell, wasn't it?
It was a very challenging political fight.
I mean, one, because the American people were very afraid of a government takeover of health care. They didn't want socialized medicine. But now some people did want that. They wanted a single-payer system, didn't they?
I believe some Americans do support a single-payer system.
Okay. But optically, that was tough for a lot of people up here to sell to the American people, because people were opposed to the health care law, and that's why there was not a single Republican vote. In fact, they really had to wrangle a lot of Democrats to get their vote. There was all kinds of deals that basically put a lot of Democrats out of office. But, I mean, that's beside the point. What I want to get to was your understanding of the state and federal exchanges, because when they started talking federal exchanges, that sounded to the people a lot like a federal takeover of health care. So state-run exchanges was a lot more palatable. It was a lot better optically. So that's what was pushed, and in fact, that's what was written in the law, wasn't it, that the states would set up exchanges and they would offer premium subsidies?
I don't have the exact wording of the law in front of me, but I believe the law said, as was referenced earlier, that the state should set up exchanges, and if not, there'd be a federal backstop.
Okay, so realize then that a federal backstop was always in play. I mean, the states had the option, but if not, the feds had to set up an exchange.
That's the way the law was written.
Okay, so your comment on January 12th of 2012, you said, if you're a state and you don't set up an exchange, that means your citizens don't get their tax credits.
Once again, that was my trying to be glib and trying to summarize a subtle point.
Why were you being glib? I mean, you were concerned about the federal exchanges. Why?
I was concerned about the federal exchanges because it was a very complicated task to get them set up, and we weren't sure who would be president when the time came to stand them up. Okay,
so who wouldn't be president? So it was political. It was a tough sell once again. People didn't want it, but there was a lot of smoke and mirrors, and there was a lack of transparency. And you said that in one of your glib statements, even though it was very accurate. But in your opening statement today, you said that the point you were trying to make about the possibility of the federal government was whether, whatever reason, they might not set up a federal exchange. Well, you just said that they had to set up a federal exchange. You just testified to that, right?
The law said that there should be federal backstop.
Okay, but it didn't say that the federal exchanges would subsidize people in those states, and that's why you made the comment in 2012, correct?
It is a very clear reading of the law that tax credits should be available to citizens in all states, regardless of who runs the exchanges.
Now, it's not clear. That's why there's a Supreme Court case. It's not clear at all. That's why we're going to hear this. But you knew in January of 2012 that there was a concern. The president knew there was a concern because he assumed the states were going to set up exchanges. He put enough incentives in there. He thought they would fall in line, and they would have that nice optic of not having a federal takeover of health care, but rather state-run exchanges. Well, only 16 did. And then there was a problem. So that's why you were concerned in 2012, correct?
My comments in 2012, as I said, were my effort to try to seem like I knew more than I did.
You belittle yourself. You know a lot. You were the guy they turned to do this. I mean, you were the one that they were going to get advice. You ran the models. You had all these models for state and federal exchanges. Did you not have a model in the event that this happened? What's happening now, 16 states and the rest are federal. Was there not a model that showed financially that was unworkable?
I am an expert within economics and microsimulation modeling. In the microsimulation modeling I assumed tax credits would be available in all states.
And so you knew that, but they didn't write that in the law. But who did? It wasn't Congress. 4 months after you made your comment in 2012, apparently the IRS listens to you because they did an end around Congress, and they rewrote and promulgated a rule to say that federal exchanges also had to offer subsidies, and that's why you were concerned in January. The IRS listened to you. They came through, took an eraser to the bill, and tried to change it for Congress because they knew we wouldn't change it for them.
Is there a question?
Well, you can comment on that. Am I wrong?
I can't conjecture why the IRS did what
you
it did. You
conjectured in 2012. You conjectured in your opening statement that you always assumed that, but you ran models, and apparently the legislators didn't listen to those models because in a hurry they passed this bill to try to sell it to the people as state-run exchanges, but they didn't have language saying the federal exchanges would subsidize subsidize the people.
As I said, I think a clear reading of the law makes it clear that tax subsidies should be available to citizens in all states, regardless.
Well, again, that's why we're in the Supreme Court. That's why it's going to the Supreme Court, because it wasn't clear. Ms. Tavener, real quickly, if I may, do you know, you're the numbers person. You said there were 6.7 million people that signed up for the Obamacare. Is that right?
6.7 million people as of October 15th have paid their premiums.
And I don't know, I'm hoping you know this, and you may or may not have it with you. You may have to get it to me. But if you do, please tell me, how many of these people who signed up are federal workers?
Are federal workers?
Yeah, people who are already on federal health care, and then they switched over to Obamacare like Ms. Lummis just did.
Well, I don't know that number, but I would assume the only individuals would be the members of Congress who are like her husband in
well,
the
there's
DC
staff
exchange.
and there's federal employees
Right.
all over this country, 2 to 4 million federal employees. How many of those signed up for Obamacare?
I don't know. I'd be glad to try
Okay,
to
I'd like to
figure
know
that
it
out.
because I'm just wondering out of the 6.7, how many actually help the private citizens of this country, and how many of those are actually just federal workers that shifted over to the health care exchange?
I think that those numbers may be available on the DC exchange. I'll see if I can get you that.
Thank you, Ms. Tavener, and thank all the witnesses.
I thank the gentleman. We now go